talk, and the most important thing in talk is the language, right? There are other ways in which we communicate, but language is the most important thing. But what happens when we talk, so it's not simply understanding the grammar of the language, but more about grammar of the use of language that all of us know, because all of us are competent users of our own communities, right? Every day we use language to do different things. So as far as knowledge of language is concerned, by the time a child is 5 years old, child understands the basic grammar of the language, and they can use it regardless of what culture, what time they're born in their culture, as long as biologically they are normal. So it's quite a normal thing to do. So in this course and in this program, what you would learn is about these rules of the use of language, and then what it means to be using more than one language. And again, all of you are multilingual, bilingual, so all of you are users of languages. So it's not simply telling you that what it is, but more about making you aware of what you do and being able to use it more strategically to achieve the goals you're trying to achieve, regardless whether you're teaching, in your day-to-day, dealings at home with people, bargaining in the, in a market, or say in the workplace when you're working people with different backgrounds. So how to find, ways of dealing with that diversity in the communication, how to become aware of it. How do you achieve that? When you achieve it, successfully, when you don't, what happens if there is a misunderstanding? And sometimes misunderstanding happens even between wife and husband, even if they have been living for 40, 50 years. So these kind of things are quite normal, but most of the time we do that. So what I have is some data of my own research in the schools, primary schools, secondary schools, in the university from UK. I did that research in the 1980s and 1990s. And I started working when I was 4 years old. Sorry, I'm just being funny. I'm just trying to reveal my age here. And then I did work in the 90s in Brunei, Southeast Asia, which is near Malaysia. Which is similar to Kazakhstan in many ways, and then also did work in China before I came to Kazakhstan, because at that time I was working for Nottingham University, so I used to go to the China campus because they had a campus there in a place called Ningbo, which is not very far off from Shanghai. So I used to go there, and I did research there. So I'll share that data. But before I start, I would like to have your understanding of using different languages that you have and what you think of it, so that we start from your understanding and relate it, because some of the things that I'm talking about you may already know. So that's one thing. Second thing is that what is it exactly that you're expecting from this talk? So that will help me to kind of shape it that is more useful for you rather than what I have in my mind. Does that make sense? Can we have the videos if you don't mind? So at least you can raise your hands. I can see you.
Yes, it's very useful. Yes, it's very, very useful, we think.
Yes. So can you start the videos if you don't mind?
Yes, just a moment.
Yeah, those who can, and so that I can see your faces and you can raise your hands or something. I have another one, Guldana. Welcome, Guldana. Okay. Okay. So what were you expecting from this talk? Anybody?
Personally, I'm expecting maybe some information about the strategies that teachers use, regarding the data that you collected in your previous research studies. Probably you have some information about what strategies teachers use to have a good talk in a multilingual classroom.
Okay.
And probably I'm expecting something related to the concepts of translanguaging or critical multilingual awareness, or maybe a lack of it, or presence. So this kind of things.
Yeah, I think the first one, certainly, because I want to see that how much other people know these specialized terms, translanguaging and critical, that we can talk separately. If people are interested, I'll be quite happy to talk about that. But we can talk about it separately as well, so we can arrange time if you want to do that. Now, anybody else, those who are coming from outside the university, what is it that you were expecting from this talk? Can I ask Are?
Hello again. Yeah, it's quite an interesting topic because in Kazakhstan, I wrote my master's degree, about trilingual policy. It's also multilingualism, right?
Yes.
And now the government, they stopped, it's not progressing currently. But when we talk about Kazakhstan education, it is multilingualism here. And I taught Kazakh, Russian, other nationalities. I'm an English teacher, and I'm interested. It will be great to know, and if you share your knowledge about this topic.
Okay, good. Galia? Galia is gone? No, she's not there, unmuted. How about Kimbat? Hello? Kimbat? She's not there yet. Can I talk to Guldana? Guldana, what are you expecting from the talk?
Good evening.
Good
nice
evening.
to see you. Yeah, and I want to know something new for me about multilingual and trilingual education. So something like that. So this it's interesting for me.
Oh, good. And we have Nadezda.
Okay, you can call me short Nadia.
Nada, okay.
Okay, Nadia, yes.
Nada,
okay. Generally, I have always been interested in multilingual education, not just in education, I think in languages. I liked studying Kazakh when I was at school. Still, I'm trying to learn other languages. This summer, for example, I studied Spanish just for using the application Duolingo program, and I'm going to marry Turkish guy. I study Turkish too. So there is some private reasons behind this, I think, because I will talk about our dream a little bit. So our dream is to rent a car, a caravan, and travel around countries, maybe places. And I'm thinking of continuing my job. So how can I do it online? I don't know yet. Maybe it happen next year, 2 years, 3 years later, but just for fun again.
Okay.
like you did.
Right. What are you doing now? Are you teaching somewhere? What are you doing?
Yes. I'm teaching at FISMAT school, English language teacher, and I also have my own class, 5th grade.
Okay.
So,
also, it's with Are, yes?
Yes, with Are, yes.
Okay, that's good. Anar, are you there? Hello? No. Okay. Galia, if she's there, we can hear from her. No, she is not there. Okay, now let's start with, understanding of, first of all, let me ask you, when we are talking, right, in your day-to-day, life, when you're talking to each other, how much conscious are you about the, different languages that you're using? Anyone, how much conscious are you? Normally, I'm not talking about being in the classroom or, or in what context you're conscious and what context you're not conscious.
You mean like personal communication with anybody, not just with
Exactly.
students?
Yeah.
For me, consciousness is just understanding this personality who I'm talking to, interests maybe, trying to understand his or her, I don't know, values or something else, and
right.
And the level, I mean, what is his level? So just talking about food or drinks or something else, or some philosophy, I don't know, languages, travel, history.
Okay, yeah.
So yes,
so
different
something
levels.
About, you always sort of unconsciously or consciously deciding about, the choices you make in terms of language or the content of what you're taking into account who you are talking to. Yes?
Yes, true.
The same subject, if you're talking to, say, children in the classroom, may be different from your colleague, right? Yeah,
true.
Because you can adjust your language, and so on. And I think that happens on day-to-day basis as well. For example, and that's quite true if you are in multilingual, bilingual communities. If you're talking to, say, somebody's talking to their, grandparents, and their grandparents they live in the villages, right? Okay, so more likely you're going to choose the language that they use more easily. Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong. Again, in different countries that I've researched, and other people's research, you also make that choices, not just even if they know some other language. For example, English and Kazakh, or English or Russian. So some people say, that I know my grandfather or grandmother can use English, but I never use the English with grandfather or even with my father or mother. I always use my own language because
yes.
I want to respect them.
Yes, yeah, very funny situation was in our life, like personal life. We are calling, for example, my boyfriend's parents, and they talk, oh, please, Nadia, can you learn Turkish, because we know to share some recipes, to talk with you. Please, we will test you when you come to Turkey. But on the other hand, when I call my grandma, she said, does he speak Russian? He needs to speak Russian. How we will communicate with him?
Exactly, yeah.
Yes,
so again, yeah, so it's about the identity of the person, right? Yes. The competence, the knowledge that they have in different languages, yeah, but also the cultural and social norms, regulation, rules, politeness, yeah. So many factors come into that decision. So we make those decisions even if we are using the same language. So for example, if you're addressing the Queen of England, right? So and how does the way Queen talks, she say, one is very glad to hear that you're doing this fantastic work.
Yes.
She wouldn't say I, right?
Yes.
One. But if somebody else uses one, that becomes that you're trying to be pompous, right? Okay. But and if making a request, for example, bland request would be, give me that pen. You're talking to your brothers, sisters, or somebody's of equal, your friend, and so on. But to your father, maybe your mother will say, give me that pen. Use some polite word, yeah? Please give me that pen. Could you please give me that pen?
Yes. Would you mind giving me?
Exactly. So I was wondering if you could give me a pen. So level of politeness, again, different languages express differently. So you can do that kind of a variation. You can use different dialect words, right? So somebody's from the South using Russian, you may adjust your Russian with their Russian, or they try to adjust their Russian, right? Similarly, Kazakh or any other language. So we do those kind of, adjustment in day-to-day language, okay? But as multilinguals or bilinguals, we have, in addition to those variation in languages, which is pronunciation or vocabulary, dialect words and so on, we also have, other languages at our disposal. And we use them for quite a lot of different impact, okay? So for example, I give you lots of, children in the UK, Asian children, parents want them to learn their languages, and outside they're using, English all the time, so they know, but they use it when they want some favor out of their parents. So when they make a request, and it's a big request, they'll use their language. Do you understand? Rather than English, because they want to please them. Yeah, it's like in your own language, you say, please, 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 you try to become very nice, okay? So I'm just talking about that. And if you want to emphasize something in a context, you will use a certain language, maybe, very important, okay? So all of us as multilinguals are aware of these things that we do without realizing. But when it comes down to the teaching or using different languages in a formal context, right, at workplace, for example, yeah, and you're working with an international team. So for example, in Kazakhstan, you may have people from Russia, you may have people, from nearby countries where they also understand and speak Kazakh, yes? And so you have 2 or 3 languages available to you, but you may choose those languages, very strategically, depending on who you're talking to and what it is you're talking about, yeah? So for example, if you're just talking on the side, like in the classroom, sometime you're talking to each other, just 2 students may just talk in Russian or, in Kazakh or in English, but when you're talking to everybody in the class and it's an English medium, you're talking English, yeah? Similarly, in a meeting, if you're talking to everybody in the meeting so that everybody understands, you may choose, English. But if you're just talking 1 or 2, sitting somebody next to you, or you just, addressing as a chair to somebody who is just Kazakh speaker, if just by using Kazakh, they can show I'm talking to you rather than anybody else. Yes. So all of us are aware of that, but how do we use them in the classroom? Okay. So there are 2 issues in the classroom. When it comes to learning, language is the primary thing through which, as human beings, we learn new things by talking to each other. If we didn't have language, if we didn't talk, we didn't construct the world we have. So other species have some language, but it's very basic, very functional. So telling each other, there's a danger here, or, sort of the food is there, but it's not talking about the past, talking about the future, or creating something new, a new type of building or new drug or this and that and so on. So that knowledge, so our thought and language are connected, right? And different languages are connected with our thoughts, and thoughts means our culture. That means just like languages, we mix our cultures as well. So different types of knowledge. So think of people, those who lived, say 500 years ago in Kazakhstan, their understanding of the environment was very different from the knowledge of environment you have. They could deal with the environment much better with the cold and other things than you can, because you have lost all those, local knowledge, right? So, but some people have that. So how do you connect? So, okay, in my own culture, we treat the teacher this way, but Western teacher may have, asked you to, call them with your own name, right? Okay. And students find it very difficult in Asia, and calling their teacher with, first name, or joking with them, for example. So as a professor, I'm sitting in the class and joking with the students. Some people might, students might think, this person is not behaving like a professor, right? Or expecting from us to learn in a particular way. You are the knowledgeable, you tell us. So that comes down to the relationship that you have and expectations you have. So can you see the cultural knowledge that we bring? So for example, from schools. So in your school, suppose you are taught to just sit and listen to the teacher, right? You'll find it very difficult to ask questions, yes? And if in the classroom, like those who have studied in the UK or in our university or some other university like that, where teachers say, please talk, like right at the beginning, say, tell me, what you want. And then we have a kind of a conversation, we build on that, what you know, so more interactive. So that's the difference of change in that, not only the culture of behavior, that, oh, you can interrupt somebody or you can ask a question, but it's also about that the knowledge doesn't only lie with the teacher. You also have some knowledge the teacher can use to build on that, what they're talking about. Like I said, I've been saying all the time that right? You have been using yourself. And when I say something, you say, yes, yes. Yeah. So I'm connecting your knowledge with my knowledge. And it's a different way, or this is, some of you may have learned the socio-cultural pedagogy that they talk about. Collaboration, yes. Working, so collaborative teaching and learning that they talk about in the classroom. So how does teacher in different classroom, I'm going to show you data that, how they do that collaborative teaching by using different language, where children or the students may or may not have enough knowledge of the target language. Suppose they're in the English classroom, yeah? Either English is the medium for instruction, which is not their language, yes? Or, it's the target language, the teaching English as a subject. Again, some students may have lots of knowledge, others may not have, yeah? So in many classrooms, you would have seen that teacher asks a question, only some people answer because they feel confident in that language, yes? So that means you never know whether other people have understood or not, yeah? So that's where teachers strategically bring other languages that other students. So how to involve students in teaching learning process. That's the main thing. So how they are grasping, how the knowledge is developing in their head, and I can show. So what we do as linguists, we record the conversations in the classroom, yeah, do ethnographic work, transcribe the conversation and analyze it to show that knowledge is developing. So we have a proof. So it's not haphazardly they're using 2-3 languages. So let me give you some examples now. Okay, let me share the screen with you. So far, everything okay? Do you have any question before I go to the data?
Yeah, everything is okay, yes.
Okay, anybody, any question?
No.
Did it make sense what I have been talking about to some extent? Yeah, so we can see it, what I've been talking about in the data now, yeah? Okay. So let me share the screen. Let me see if it works. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So these kind of things I've just generally talked about: the role of language in knowledge development, the nature of talk, the collaborative talk in the classroom, and the multilingual classroom is United Kingdom, Brunei, Dar es Salaam, and China. Okay. So the first one is, this is a primary school in the UK, in the northeast of UK, Lancashire, if you know, next to Yorkshire. And in these classes, I'm not going to go in the details. Just if you want to have some papers, you can write to me. I can send you those papers, publications. So in this classroom, teacher is talking to students about electricity, and most of the children in this classroom are of Pakistani background. Okay, in this city, there are lots of children of that background at that time, and these children come from homes where they spoke languages like Urdu, Punjabi, Gujarati. These are all South Asian languages. And the teacher are both the mainstream teacher and a teacher who speaks one or other languages that the children use. So some children use English, but they may not be that competent or confident. So it's a mixed class in terms of mixed ability and as well as in terms of diversity as well. So this conversation is going on. They are talking about the concept of electricity, right? So here, the bold part, if you see line 10, can you see line 10?
Yes.
Okay, line 10, it says BA, bilingual assistant. So the bold line, that's a utterance in Punjabi, right? But the highlighted part I have done, the yellow part are some of the utterances or what the children are saying, okay? And some of the red ones are from the teacher, okay? So if you see teacher, she is using the word electricity, and then later she is translating that word into Punjabi, which is bijli, okay? So some children, those who do not understand what electricity is, they can understand through this word. So if you pay attention, children are repeating after teacher, electricity, electric, light, light. Yeah, that's another thing. So in South Asian English, sometimes electricity is called light, right? So they say, switch on the light, okay? Yeah, so they don't say switch on, they say close the light, open the light, okay? Because that's how they explain that. So the teacher understands that they're using their local way of using English. So she is emphasizing electricity, but at the same time giving them the word. So eventually children learn that the word they have already known in their own languages, in English that's called this. So what happens? So when children are learning a word, new word, it's not only a word they are learning, it's the new concept they're learning, okay? So it's when somebody says, cloud is a concept, right? So it creates a certain image in your head. Happiness, okay? Happiness, how can you explain, how can you show a picture of happiness? No, but if you use that word in their language, they would know this happiness, that's what it means, okay? How do you say steam if you're teaching science? So it reduces cognitive load in the sense they understand it, but at the same time, they learn a word that expresses that concept, that is in real life, what it means, the English word, okay? So the vocabulary development. Same thing. So another person says batti. So there is another word that's in Urdu. So children, she uses that, they again say bijli. So you can see over many turns, teacher and students talking to each other, and this is what we call co-construction of meaning. That means teacher and students are equally involved in thinking together to understand that concept and what word in English and their own languages represented, what word represents that concept in their own language and English. So there is both cognitive development and linguistic development. Do you see that? So it's not teacher teaching from the top saying, oh, in your language, you call it bijli, in your language you call it bijli, but children may just listen without paying much attention. But if they're engaging with the teacher, they'll be actively thinking with the teacher. That's called co-construction of meaning, right? And that's the co-constructive approach, those who learn these things. Okay. Any questions so far? Anyone? Can you sort of somehow relate to this in the way you may have learned your own language by your own teachers? Do you remember anything like this? The teacher using, English or Russian or Kazakh words to teach you that language and then translating in your own language? Anyone?
Yeah, we do. Okay, yeah, we do. Sometimes we, okay. Let's start. When I taught primary students, sometimes I need that moment I needed to translate into Kazakh or Russian to understand, to see their understanding. But exactly. I think it's not good every time to translate the exact words. At that time, I think it's good to use pictures to do not translate directly.
Yeah.
But when I teach secondary students like 10th or 11th grade students, I give some definition. I don't try to give, in their native language.
Exactly. So that's the strategic use of multilingual pedagogy, right? So you're using according to who you're talking to, right? That's what you were talking about right at the beginning. Somebody was telling us, so you're adjusting your language. So it's not, and that's what means strategic use, So you're not using haphazardly, right? And has anyone taught you that, how to do that? Or you have done it yourself?
At the university, yes, they said especially with primary students, we need to translate. When we teach also grammar, it needs to be in their native language.
Right.
Yeah, but not every time.
That's good. So you can see that you can relate. And this data I'm presenting from UK. So what you're doing is not very different, right? Okay. So there is something universal about the way multilingual use their language. Do you understand?
Yes. The main thing I think the students should understand what we are,
exactly. So cognitive, So cognitive load, because we are talking about young minds, So, and how to motivate them to become interested in what they're learning, right?
Yeah.
So you use that language to encourage them as well to participate, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then another thing is that's connected to their identity. I come to that in a moment. Okay, so you can see, and this data is from, I said, late 80s and early 90s. So it's not that, people are doing, differently what, people were doing at that time differently. So people have been doing that hundreds of years, those who are multilingual societies. And most of the world has been multilingual, okay? Okay. So let me give you now. Okay, that's another, example. In this example, they're talking about animals and how different animals live on the branches of a tree or somewhere under the roots or over the branches or inside the, this trunk. So through that, they were trying to teach prepositions in English, okay? So here also you can see teacher is using translation methods and students are using other languages as well. Because the time is limited, you understand what I'm talking about. So I'll just move on, okay? Now, so again, there are more examples of that how they're systematically repeating them, how involving children in that. And towards the end, they're repeating again and again the English word, so the children understand the target there is to understand the English word and know that vocabulary, as you were making that point earlier.
I have a question, sorry.
Okay, yeah,
it's
sure.
Like the teacher who translated into, I don't know, Pakistani language,
Yeah.
They translated only target language, not the whole sentence, right?
No, I think it's the whole, it's not about whole sentence or, just a word. It's about how they can understand. So you can use whole sentence because the meaning of a word is always in the context in which it's used. So sometimes the whole sentence provides the context in which that word is used. Okay, so for example, the word water, okay, water is, you know, say in let me relate it to Hindu religion. Yes, you know, the Muslims use that language, Christians use that language, Hindi and Urdu in Southeast Asia, and Punjabi use these words. So there is word called pani, okay, for water, but that's the day-to-day word. But when Hindus offer water to a god or goddess, they use the word jal, okay, right? So it's the context only within what sentence you're using, then you'll come to know, you know, what's the meaning of this word. Do you understand? Yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, I give you an example from these classrooms. So when the English teacher was working with the Pakistani teachers, so she said, oh, what do you say? You know, she was looking for a word in Urdu or Punjabi language, the word for grandfather. She says, what is the word for grandfather? Right? So now, grandfather, they are different words if the grandfather is from the mother's side or the grandfather in the father's side. Do you understand? So the cultural difference. So language and culture are very intimately connected. So teacher has to create a context within which they can say and then point out that this word relates to, you know, in English, it's just one word. But in you know, Pakistani languages or Indian languages or, you know, Bangladeshi's languages, use them separately. Okay, so can you see the complexity? So when you start talking about, so in this, when we do grammar, what we call syntax, our, you know, unit of analysis is a sentence. Whereas in conversation analysis, what you do, the unit of analysis is an utterance, which can be more than, you know, 3-4 sentences or just one word or a part of a word. So it's altogether a different kind of grammar and grammatical analysis, because it looks to language and meaning in the context, who you're talking to, what topic you're talking about, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me get to Brunei Darussalam. It's a high school, okay? And here the teacher is talking about that they are doing a past year's exam as a practice exam, which, you know, it goes on in you know, all kinds of classrooms here in the UK as well as all over the world. It's O-level English examinations, you know, what we call, as opposed to the European, you know, baccalaureate. We have these O levels and A levels in the UK here. And she's talking about a history of travel. And let me see what's going on. And here, what I have done, I have highlighted the words that students are responding with. So teacher is asking these students question, but either they're saying yes, or they're silent, or there's something mumbling, but they're not saying something loudly. So that means I was there, so I remember they were mumbling them in their own language, right? But they couldn't, because, let's see, the next one. As it, what do you mean by series of villages? Teacher says that. Silence from students. Teacher says, what is the village? Students, some mumbling. And a student says, so teachers again ask, what is the village? And a student says, kampung, yellow highlighted. That means village in Malay language, their own language. And later on, if you see, the teacher says that no Malay language in this classroom. See, she doesn't allow. It's a high school. But this classroom, the students come from a village and their knowledge of English is not that good. Very low level knowledge. So they cannot participate in English, but she's forcing them. And then the student says village, and the students laughs, and then other students laugh. And the point is, later on, the students told me that he was frustrated. So he had to use that. And he said, why shouldn't I use it? This is my national language. So can you see, the teacher was creating a situation in the classroom where teacher and student didn't get along. So motivation was lacking as well. As opposed to, again, if you want to read more in detail, you know, there's a publication, I'll give you that. Another classroom where the teacher allowed the, you know, use of different languages. So here she's talking about, again, this one is, what is it about? Oh, dogs. So how dogs were domesticated by human beings. So she was talking about earlier in the older times, you know, the wild dogs used to roam around, okay? And then says, ask the students, what does it mean, roam? Okay, she's asking that. And the student says something and she says, no. And another students ask in yellow, yeah? Apakan, that's in, you know, Malay. That means what? What? So students feel they can ask for a clarification, as opposed to in previous classroom. Students can't open their mouth unless they speak in English. So they are totally quiet. But here, student can participating. They can clarify, right? So that means they can ask for clarification in the language that they understand. Let me go to the next slide. What's happening? It's not moving. Wait a minute. Oh, cancel. So he says, what does roam mean? So she repeats that question. Where is it? Oh, what happened? Okay, yeah. Now you see, so one student right at the top highlighted, this makes a roaring noise like a tiger does, okay? So teacher said, no, that's roared, yeah, as roaring, yeah? And then another student says, roam around, ba, okay? It's roam around. So this students use the phrase roam around and then uses ba. Ba is a, you know, particle, we call it, a word in Malay language they use it when they speak Brunei English. So they make it Brunei English, they use ba. What it called like Singlish, Singaporean English. Yes, you may have learned. So using some local words, so ba. So he is making it local. And what does he mean by roam around here? The teacher says, roaming ba. It's roaming. Still, we don't know what do they mean. So she's just repeating roaming. Yeah, again, as if she's talking, as we'll say, okay, the students understood. But another student said, chatu ba. It's like that. Then the teacher says, in Malay, it's like if a phone. Which you know, roaming, right? So do you know what's going on here? What's happening?
Roaming, like a phone. Like
yes.
National roaming, yeah.
So who is coming with this, you know, idea of roaming? Student or the teacher?
Roaming from
the student, yeah.
Student, yes.
So you see, students, young students, when it comes to roam, they are so used to using this word roam in this context of mobile phones and so on. Do you understand? Internet language. But teacher didn't think that she could use as a clue for them to understand what this roam meant. Do you understand? Do you get that?
Yes. Student, they helped.
Exactly. So teacher, because teacher allowed them to use their own knowledge in their own language, they were engaged. Students could think, suddenly say, now I know what she's talking about. Is it like that? And then another students, like that. It's like this, you know, for these students, the penny dropped. Yes. Same for the teacher, roaming bar. Teacher even herself, she's surprised. Yes, I got to connect it. So teacher and students are co-constructing the meaning. Do you understand? And what we say, unpacking the text. So the written text which is there, they're unpacking the meaning of that together. So bringing their different resources, cultural resources and language resources to understand what's going on, both in linguistic terms and, the Malay. So again, they're repeating another students, it's like that, roaming car. So other students, slowly, other students get the idea as well. So the whole class, so here in this short conversation, we can see how the knowledge is developing. Can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, in the older ways, the only way for us to understand when you have taught, to give students a test to understand when they have understood or not. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the term or at the end of the week or at the end of the class. But sometimes students may get, by hook or crook. Some people may get it, some people may not get it. But this way, that students have understood that. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
And majority of students understood that because they already knew this word that they had been using in other contexts, the English word, or they have connected it to their own word in their own language. So can you see the significance of multilingual talk, not looking at just in terms of sentence or word, but something that we make sense in day-to-day life when you're talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're always mixing languages because it's the meaning that we have in the mind. It's only in the classroom or in where people think if your English is not very good, you become very conscious, or your Russian is not very good, you become very conscious, or your Kazakh is not very good, you become very conscious. Otherwise, you use this language day to day. People use in the work environment, in all other environments. So that's what we call translanguaging or multilingual pedagogies that we are talking about, using the language in the way strategically we use in day-to-day language. So students, as long as students know that, look, let's use your first language or languages and your knowledge to the extent it's useful. Let's not just, sort of talk all the time in this language. For example, secondary school students. So once students know, so they will start using their home language strategically, but at the same time, keeping in mind the goal of learning the target language, or like in CLIL, using the target language as a medium of instruction as well. Yeah, you get that point?
Yes, yes.
So how to get students on board in terms of what your pedagogic strategy is, and what approach is, and what is their goal. So they're collaborating with you rather than only you have those things clear in your head and students don't know. So this is what we call meta language, yeah, or metacognitive development. So students know what they are doing, why they are doing, right? So that means this topic we are doing because this topic is important for that thing, but also we are using languages like this because of these purposes. Do you understand that?
Yeah, students will remember the things because they discussed by themselves.
Exactly. So students they feel more motivated, they feel closer to the teacher. We know how important for students to be feeling close to their teacher and be trustworthy, knowing and trusting teacher, they know their problems. Yes. So teacher is not going to make them embarrassed in the classroom.
Yeah, they became as part of the learning.
Exactly.
Together.
So partner. So that's what we want. We have a word, a phrase. It's a theoretical phrase. Community of practices. Have you heard that?
Yes.
So anything that we do, we're part of the same culture. We know why we are doing that. So if you're in the kitchen, you know how to behave with each other, what to do, how to hold the pan. You're not going to give the pan in somebody's hand when it's hot. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Talking common sense, but we have learned that. A child wouldn't know, right? You're socializing to that. So these kind of things, we have to socialize students in multilingual ways of behaving both in their own community. We do that. They know when to, how do you know with your grandparents, you're not going to use English and so on. It's not that your parents sat down, said these. No, you have seen that around you, have learned slowly, osmosis. So you have to create So don't treat classrooms or workplace or a meeting as if it's not part of the bigger society. Because people are the same. You're bringing the same identity, same, cognitive understanding, competencies, and so on. Okay. So let me take you to another classroom room in China now. Okay. So this one is in a university in Shanghai. Is one of the top universities, Shanghai, which is called Shanghai Jiatong University, first year universities, And so she's talking about the American literature and British literature, and she's talking about Henry VIII, the King of England. Yes, and the topic is that. And here you see the green marked are students' utterances. Okay, right? So in this classroom, just like in the classroom in Brunei, this teacher doesn't allow the first language, they're Chinese or other dialects of Chinese. So you don't see the students not participating much, either just simply repeating the teacher or they're mumbling. But towards the end, here at the bottom, a student is, I think Henry, and he's struggling. So can I speak in Chinese? And says in a lower voice because he's feeling embarrassed, because as if he's breaking the rules. And the teacher is asking the rest of the class, he wants to speak in Chinese. Is it okay? Ask for permission, yes, yes, or no. And other students laugh and say yes. She thinks very jokingly, but at the same time, this teacher has made the students lose face. Do you know this expression, lose face? Student must have felt insulted. The losing face is a very, very big, concept in cultural concept in Chinese culture. So you don't make anybody lose their face. So you don't insult them in public. So she has done that. And so, but he does that. And again, another student asks that. So you see not much learning taking place here. So teacher is just following what she wants. And some students, those who are comfortable speaking in English, they're answering. So those who do not understand, they carry on. And sometimes, in big class, you may have found yourself sometime. I remember my time that I may not know the answer. If there's a chorus, I'll just join, a fraction letter as if I have understood as well. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, so that means you're not taking the whole class with you. You're just only catering to a few who have better knowledge of that language or because they come from homes, but your responsibility is the whole class, right? Okay, so let's go to a next class again. So this class, this teacher is talking about the American culture, and this is, the English classes. So this is about the history of Virginia, okay? Here, right from the beginning, you see the red, teacher's utterance. She is using both English and Chinese. Yeah, can you see that in Chinese? Say, so the first literature form is a letter. Can a letter be considered a form of literature? Some students fumbling, somebody says yes, seem not, another says in Chinese. So that means they know. So that means party seems not. So they're addressing and they're using these big words, which they may not know in English, right? And again, so English is going on, they're using more and more Chinese and English students are using. So I'm not going to go into the detail, but you can see what's going on.
Yes.
They are co-constructing. Can you see that?
Yes.
They're talking about, the jumping, the grasshopper. Teacher is using the word in Chinese. So students are, it's helping students cognitively to straight away get to the concept rather than, paraphrasing it and other things. Because another teacher problem is that you have limited time to achieve the target during that hour, right? Because you have they have syllabus, you have the curriculum. So and many places that I've done research and other people, teachers said this is strategy to cut down on time, because although they say, oh, you just use in one language, that's not necessary. I've shown there are lots of experiments done where they have done, just one language or mixing language, attainment of language and cognitive development, they didn't find any difference. So learning of English as a target language and using, English as a medium instruction for learning the content. But they found that the students had better knowledge in addition to of their own language if they, they were part of that learning themselves. So they were more engaged and they can retain the meaning of the vocabulary or the content much longer than those who did it in just one language. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, but this kind of doing research because lots of people go in education and take, sheets and mark how many times, who uses what language and so on, but you don't know exactly how this cognitive, development takes place in multilingual talk or conversation. So it's only by recording it, transcribing it, then you can see. So although the test can tell you, oh, this class has done very well, this class hasn't done very well. Mm-hmm. The same teacher may be teaching the two classes, but you don't know exactly, even if you're teaching the exactly same way, why it worked in one classroom, why it didn't work in another. So you do not get, the quantitative research doesn't give you those answers of why and how. So how those teachers achieve better results using multilingual pedagogies as opposed to some other teacher who may also be using multilingual pedagogies, but they may be using simply what we call their other pattern, discourse patterns. So they're not allowing students to participate, but they're using their language just to explain to them, but not engaging them. Does it make sense?
Yes, yes, of course.
So I have provided you just the snippets, just a taster to understand, what it means to, to be using a multilingual pedagogy, right, in the classroom. And it is quite normal to use both in our day-to-day lives, all around the world. And of course, as right from the beginning, somebody says that you have to be strategic. As you said yourself, that in your day-to-day life, you're being strategic as well. So unless you share that research, unless teachers talk to each other, and we do this research and share the findings from different places, we won't know much. We don't know much yet. So just simply saying one language only doesn't help, because it's a very, very monolingual view, which comes from the research, very old research as well. So because, for example, I was doing this research in the 80s, in the UK, we already knew the importance of it, but internationally, that research, so the theoretical work I did at that time is the mainstream work, right? That's what people are saying, they're accepting that, so clearly it's just going there, but not quite there yet, so those kind of things are there. So any comment, any clarification, any sort of opinion on what I taught? Is there anyone who agrees with me, or
yes.
Any other? Okay.
Looking at this presentation, looking at this page, I have a question. Like, the main language should be in English, yeah, but they use Chinese
as well. Yes. So the point, so target language is English, but the content, this is not an English class. This is a English literature class. Do you understand? So when they're learning, that lots of places, I don't know whether in Brunei, in Kazakhstan they do it not. Children, those who learn English as a target language, both in school and the university, they also learn the culture of that language.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so initially they used to teach just British culture, then they started including American culture, they started using then, New Zealand culture and, Australian culture. Then now they start, the most, even British, literature degrees, English literature degrees, they talk about world Englishes, different varieties of English. So the writers all over the world are using English, but that English is adopted to the cultural nuances of that culture, right? So for example, they're expressing, particular ways. So in these two classrooms, they were supposed to use world literature, but they weren't. Okay, because again, very little research is done, but theoretically we have talked about it for some time. Because the main thing is because English as a lingua franca. So earlier they think people were learning English to talk to people, those who are, monolingual from England or America and so on. But now English speakers are all over the world. So Japanese are doing, business with Chinese, Chinese are doing the Korean, Koreans are doing the Indians, Indians are doing the Nigerian, Nigerians are doing, Saudi Arabian, and they're all using English. And they have to use to each other's English rather than, British English or American English. So much more business is going on internationally. So
yes,
the
it's true.
so notion of what is, English is an international language is changing. It's not the British language. So it's a global language, and they call it English as a lingua franca. So there's another, strand of studies, right? So do you get the idea? Yeah. So here, the main focus, so in the other, classroom, the first classroom teacher was focusing on the, just English only, because he thought the target language is English, you shouldn't use Chinese. And you're saying if you use Chinese too much, then they won't get a chance to, practice their English. But because they were not using it, because their competition wasn't that much, or they weren't feeling that confident, they were not using, so there was no practice. So the content also was suffering as a result of that. So that's the problem with sometimes with the clear approaches as well. Do you understand? So it's a very complex thing for teachers to understand. So this again, so teachers training colleges, teachers need to be involved in action research and so on and so forth.
Yes, looking at your presentation, I'm thinking now about mostly new students who come to our class. As you know, for example, if you teach for about 1 year, the same class, the same children, they are growing together, they are very motivated, their language is improving, their knowledge is improving, understanding is improving, but sometimes 1 or 2, 3 students, new students come and their knowledge is very poor. And it's very difficult to balance between these students who already grew and can read, can pronounce words very well, understand, and others say, I don't understand English, I don't speak English, I can't read English, and it's really becoming a problem,
I think there we talk about 3 types of talk, because what you're saying by the end of the term or half term, you're developed as a community of practices, right? They know when you're talking, what to do, what their role is, what, your role is, so there are terms, but there are 3 types of talks in the classroom, in any classroom. So one is the, pedagogical talk or cumulative talk. So that means you introduce a topic and their knowledge of that topic may be very new. So you start with simple concepts, and slowly as their knowledge, you go to the next lesson and the next lesson, they become more and more, suppose you're teaching about verbs, yes? Or teaching about, environment. So slowly their knowledge develops. So that's content knowledge, whether it's the language as a subject or some other subject, science, yeah? So that's cumulative talk we talk about. So you talk about that. Then there is a classroom management talk. So when you're telling, oh, now we are going to do comprehension talk, now we are going to lab work. So in each situation, you use language differently for different purposes, or storytelling. So again, one has to go into detail. And the other type of talk is classroom relationship talk. What kind of relationship you create with your students? So do they feel comfortable with you? Do they feel comfortable asking you for clarification? Do they feel comfortable to be adventurous in trying out something, shouting out an answer, and sometimes it's like the student saying, roaming ba. So student, without any fear, could use something that you thought might be relevant. and then teacher confirms that. So let the teacher decide whether it's relevant or not. So same way, so these are underlying principles that we understood from, that the linguistic research that we have done for long time, of classroom discourses or discourses or conversation in other, context. Yeah, so it makes sense. So you can assume that students, what they know after the half term, you don't have to repeat that. But if there are 2 students, you're just simply, and that's why teacher says, attend your classes regularly, even the university, because suddenly you haven't attended and you're disturbing other students. So what the teacher meant, what did the teacher mean, Make sense?
Yes, true.
Any comment, any other view or question?
I don't know, maybe just some comments. Yes. Before teaching, we do something. While teaching topic or speaking particular language, we do other things. But I also like strategy when at the end of the units or a module, I say, okay, for example, we studied with you people, personality, neighbors, other, and why did we study present simple, for example, to talk about our usual life, what you do, where do you go, what we like, what we don't like short summing up. Or for example, next time we are going to study places, so we will use there is, there are, and we will describe places. Next time we'll study history, or we studied history, we will talk about stories, we will study this and this and talk just about past simple. Something
I got
like
it.
this.
Yeah, I got it. But why do you do that? What's the purpose?
The purpose, again, to not just give detailed knowledge, but why did we use this language? Why did we use this particular grammar? Again, like summing up, short summing up.
Good, good. So main idea is because you're doing so many things, yes? In your head, everything is clear right from the beginning because you're prepared. But even if, students, those who are highly qualified, or even if I'm sitting, I have to make a sense of why you're saying that. So towards the end, you bring everything together, okay, consolidate everything, okay, so, okay, yeah, this connects this way, this way, this way. So bigger picture comes together, yeah? So, and then you say how it is connected, what we are going to do next. So that means when they're going to prepare, they're taking that into account, that this knowledge they have learned is not in isolation. It's part of ongoing. Remember, I was talking about the cumulative talk. So this is a cumulative meta language. Now, what do you do at the beginning of the lesson then? So that's the end of the lesson. What do you do at the beginning of the lesson?
So what are we going to talk about today? What do you know about this? For example, some couple of questions warming up. Do you know this? Do you know that? What is it?
So,
what is that?
So what are these questions from? Are they from the new topic, or the previous topic, or what?
Connected to the previous topic, just to construct their knowledge.
Exactly. So these are strategies. So this is called genre analysis. So doing a genre analysis of the whole class lesson. Yes. So there is a beginning, like in anything, at a story or any narrative. There is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end. Okay. In written discourse, we call it genre. In spoken discourse, we call it communicative event. Yes, but they mean the same thing. So there is always a beginning, middle, and the end. And that's how, so implicitly, you are making explicit what is in your head. And that's something, earlier research that we did, teachers didn't do that. So they weren't trained for these things in their, training or their degrees, that how to organize, how to plan, how to make, explicit, what they're doing and why they're doing. So yeah, that's fantastic. And again, so you can say, okay, we have used all these languages. Yeah, we enjoyed it. And, and Russian, this is a very interesting word. And but in English it's like this, they don't mean the same thing. Colors, for example. right? If we say green color, the green color to a Muslim has different meaning to a saying in English, which is green with envy, right? So culturally they're red. So many culture, red is an auspicious colors representing, say wedding or something. And in some other it's white. And some other white has to do with mourning. Do you understand? So students get this cultural knowledge. So words are not separate. They are not contextually. So what we have been doing, decontextualized teaching rather than contextualized teaching. Do you understand? So you have to contextualize the language and the content at that moment that you're teaching to a particular group, knowing what their background is, how much they already understand, what they don't know. So teacher does lots of things they don't know. So it's, when you engage students, their questions will make you understand, okay, they don't know, so they can adjust your teaching. Do you understand? So they go, okay, you know this one, how about this one? So you're prepared with that. So some flexibility is required. You have an outline, but so that's why it doesn't help teachers to give them, models, or this is a model you teach. That's no, teacher has to be creative. Otherwise teachers struggle because every class is different. All of us know, either as students or, as teachers. Any other question? Any other opinion? Did it make sense to you what I talked about?
Yes, really was very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, other people are saying
yes.
anything. Can I see you on the video? Everyone, if you don't mind. Can you come to the video? Tell me what you liked in what it is that you didn't know or you knew, but that got reinforced, or you thought, oh, and you're thinking differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After this meeting or lecture, before I thought that I shouldn't translate into Kazakh or into Russian. Like sometimes I did when I taught primary students, but I think when we translate every time in their native language, they used to, the translation, and sometimes they will wait for my translation. And that's why I try to avoid giving the direct translation of the words or some phrases like this. Sometimes when I ask some questions, they answer and they don't know some words, and they say in Kazakh or in Russian. And I say, translate, please. And then, or I ask students, like, could you help him to, do you know the words? Ask students to help him. And 100%, I'm sure that one student among 15 students, they will know and they will help. Yeah, like this, I do like this.
So that's partnership teaching. You become the same culture, right? So you're helping students, helping each other. That's why student talk, teachers, students talk. So it's more interactive rather than you're telling them. So you can translate them without explaining. So sometimes students know the word, but they don't know the meaning of it.
And
they
also, and concept checking question helps a lot, concept question and ICQ, CCQ questions. In this case, with translation, it helps very well.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to remember is have a natural conversation with your, students in the classroom, regardless where, because in day-to-day life, we have natural conversation with our, whosoever we're talking to. Mm-hmm. The language comes later. Cognitive parts come first. So once cognitively something is clear, the cognitive load is low, then you can add language to that or some new concept and so on. So the threshold, you have to keep the threshold in mind, so take them with you, make them think with you rather than, so it's called problem solving. So you may have learned the problem solving teaching. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, Aidana, what do you think? You have been doing these things. Are you there? The MA student, but she has left. Andre is not there. Okay. And Sabita? No. Okay.
By the way, the same happening sometimes in the classroom.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do in online, I always try to keep them focused every second, because we have just 20-25 minutes of lesson,
Yes.
and from about 15 to 28 students. And that's why I say, okay, this, what do you think? Okay, Aidana, what do you think? Anel, what do you think? Please, how do you understand this? Always like flying a kite and trying to this.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think what we say, we call it, safe talk. So there is a kind of a superficially, you can see students are engaged, they're participating, they're learning, but not each and every student is learning. So some may have got it, others, okay, they got it as a word, but they're not very clear. So retention then becomes difficult. But your difficulty is, doing the time, because you have limited time, large classes, and you're not given these ways how to engage students and how to find different ways, different kind of activities that they can help you, you see. Yes. So I think it's not that you don't know, it's just you're thrown into the deep end. So people may talk or use, different languages, but they don't tell you how to use them. That's not good either. So I'm checking with you, right? So when you go back, when you read other people's studies, you try it out, slowly you become, all of us learn these things and become easy with that thing. It's like the beginning of a class, new class. You're nervous, students are nervous, by the mid-term or the end of the term, very comfortable with each other.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, can I leave?
No, it's okay, it's the time for me as well, but I thought,
okay, enjoyed it very much, thank you.
Anybody, if you want any reading or anything, you can write, yes?
I'm sorry, yeah, I've got some problems with my microphone, I couldn't.
Okay, I don't know, yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with the previous teacher who said that giving the direct translation all the time, it's not the best option to do. But I also support the idea about letting students to use their native or first languages to meaning making, yeah, as we use it as a Baker used, as Garcia used. So meaning making, I guess it's the most important part of the teaching and learning as well, because we, being master degree students, we also experience it in the classroom when we try to have a small discussion during the classes, explaining or asking each other in our own language, so that we will have a chance to comprehend the concept or the idea better. So I believe it's very important to let students to do so. But if the classroom is not diverse, and if there is in the case of Kazakhstan, for example, we have only bilingual students who speak Russian and Kazakh. So it's better, it's easier for teachers as well to adapt, because they know our language, and they might control, they might manage if there is something wrong, or if they are doing everything right. So in the case of Kazakhstani context, I guess it's easier even.
So yeah, you would have learned the concept of scaffolding, yes? Yeah, the scaffolding, yeah. So no, I think it's so you can see how these teachers are doing, and if you see my papers, you'll see more in-depth analysis of that and how different concepts that explains them. So I'm quite happy to share my publications. If you can make a folder somewhere for people, and if you want to talk, I can share those.
Yeah, that would be great. And Professor, at the very beginning, you talked a lot about language choices and language use, and about different domains of use. And I found it very interesting, because currently all the readings that I'm doing are related to this. So If you have anything related to that as well, it will be great.
Have you read my critical diglossia paper?
No, not yet. So
okay, so I'll send you that as well. If somebody else.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Andre, you want to say something?
Yes, hello. Sorry, hello. I didn't turn on the microphone. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for this.
The microphone. Okay. It's there.
Yes, I just wanted to add that in addition to the direct translation, what you can do in terms of multilingual methods, what I use sometimes is trying to build up the students' metalinguistic awareness, sort of. So when you and it's very useful to make sort of parallels between, say, English word structure and then Russian word structure, and it helps to explain meanings of certain things. For example, so if you explain what the word consciousness means, so you take a look at the stem like psi, so and you sort of translate it to Russian and say this is the same as like knowledge, or znание. And then you incorporate this notion of prefix, kon, which means together. In Russian, it's the same as so. And then you do the same thing in Russian, and you get the direct translation of consciousness in Russian, so znание.
Yeah, I think that's what they did in the 90s in the UK work, big project, language awareness approach. So while teaching how you're raising awareness of language. So what is language as a unit? So how you compare, so it's not error analysis as they would do in very restricted way, but language awareness, which is taken up in say CLIL, but not with that kind of linguistic kind of understanding. So what you're doing exactly that linguistic kind of understanding, raising their awareness about how languages work. So when they become interested in that, explorer themselves, lifelong explorer. So you don't have to teach. So in a new situation, they themselves are aware, oh, this person is using this word in this sense, not this way. So in the negotiation of meaning that goes on in the interaction, in a real context, you have that capacity of accommodation or intercultural understanding. So that's a wonderful example. Carry on, yeah.
Another example is to go back to like etymology of certain words in different languages. So for example, if you look at the word happy in English, so if you look in a dictionary, it goes back to some old English roots meaning luck.
Yes.
Whereas the Russian equivalent of happy or happiness, счастье, the etymology of it is часть, which is part.
Yeah.
So it sort of gives you a cultural awareness as well. So in the English-speaking culture, happiness has something to do with luck, with chance, whereas in the Russian-speaking culture, or maybe some other languages that are similar, happiness is being part of a community. So it develops a conversation, I think, and it builds, in addition to language awareness, also like multicultural communication awareness, cultural awareness. And
exactly. That's right. So when you're preparing, you can prepare this way. You can give them something to go away and explore that, read some literature, do some internet search as a group. But when you're teaching there and then, when things happen, it's like when you're just suddenly, oh yeah, probably she's talking about roaming, and she realized probably they may not know the word roam. She said, okay, what does it mean? Let me explain that. So it's just happening there and then. And then in conversation, students are coming, so they're not pre-planned. So because most of the conversation, that's what a natural conversation, if it's the nature of conversation, is that most of the time it's not pre-planned. That means you don't know who is going to say what, when, for how long, how and why in natural conversation. Yeah, it flows. So it's all, so in the interaction itself, participants themselves manage the talk. Whereas a teacher is a pre-planned talk. But how to make it natural talk is At that time, students feel that students is not the, teacher is not the only knower. So teacher has to become non-knower as well. So it's scaffolding paper that I've done. I've talked about these things, knower and non-knower. So most of the classroom teachers go as knowers. No, you know about what you want to achieve. You don't know what students can bring to the table to this understanding. So when you're saying cultural understanding, so for example, when I was teaching at Lancaster University, again, 90s, so we are talking about these things, these kind of issues. And this, he was a head teacher who was doing this degree, MA degree. So he said, so what does, what is it? Mima. So everybody says, and everybody was, sort of Anglo British student. So he says, oh, mother. He says, no. And he came from one village in Lancashire. He says, in my village, Mima means grandmother. Do you understand? So diversity that you have within the language, the variations that you have. So you become explorer. So the creativity, so that's what you're making students become aware of this, that language is a fluid thing, right? It's not just the dictionary meaning. It's negotiated. Boundaries are fluid of any genre or any event. You can negotiate them, you see. And when people come from different perspectives, then unless you challenge the established knowledge, established genres, established boundaries, you cannot create something new. Do you understand? So no, I think it's a fantastic discussion. Anybody else? Any other view? Okay, so do you all have my email address? You can write to me. I can send you the publications that you're looking for. Yeah, or if you want to get in touch with me for anything else, you have. If you don't have Aidana, she can help you with that.
Yes,
Aidana, yeah. So you can write to Aidana, and she can help me to get me in touch with you. Unless you have any views, comments, or question, I consider that we have received.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Professor.
Yeah.
Can I say a couple of words? I just want to say thank you for your lecture. It was really interesting. But now, currently, I'm not teaching English, but I hope when I will teach in the future, because I'm planning to do that, I will use some suggestions that you said, because meaning making is really important in teaching.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I think it applies to your daily life. So that's what I'm saying right from the beginning. This is we do in day-to-day life. So we have to understand, as linguists, we understand how people achieve multilingually what they achieve in day-to-day life, right? So you incorporate that, regardless what you're doing. When you're talking to people, those who do better deals in any situation. You see, some people are very good at with people. Why? Because they have these, strategic way of talking to other people. They're very popular, right? They can connect to people. So these are, the cultural ways of using language in a very strategic and in a very, in a way that people like. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So become observer, how people are achieving what they're, so if this person is very good at this, getting good deals on cars or getting good deals on, or getting coffee, fast in the cafe, even if it's very, how they're achieving that. Do you understand? So it's not just a non-verbal or other mannerism, but also how they're using language, how they're using, different ways of different style, mixing languages or whatever,
Yeah,
Become
thank you.
observer. Yeah. Okay. I think, thank you very much. It's taken much longer than, I thought, but very interesting. And